So far, I've talked about several important features associated with a bond, right? So we have face value, we have maturity, we have coupon rate. But there's another, also bond price. There's another very important which is not reported or shown on the bond. It's called what? It's called the risk. So buying bond, right, is not risk free. You are going to be exposed to certain risk if you buy bond. You could buy U.S. federal government bond. You can buy the Texas state government bond. You can buy Houston municipal bond issued by the Houston city government, or you can buy corporate bond, Disney bonds, American Airlines bond, right? 3M bonds, P&G bonds, or ExxonMobil bonds, right? Corporation, they can also borrow money by issuing bonds. But if you are on the supply side, that means you buy bonds, you are lending money to governments and corporations, right? This process, this bond investment is not risk-free. It involves a particular kind of risk called a credit risk. So what's a credit risk? Credit risk is associated with bond investment. So remember, previously, I've used the phrase, assume everything is fine, right? The US government is going to pay you if you buy this bond, right? So 2-year US federal government bond with face value $1,000, coupon rate is 0.38%. If everything is fine, or assume everything is fine, you're going to receive 2 installments of coupon payments, right? And at the end of the maturity, you're going to receive the face value payment. So this is assuming everything is fine, but it doesn't have to be fine. So what's credit risk? Essentially, the borrower, in this case, the US federal government, right, may not be able to fulfill all those promises. What are those promises? I'm going to pay you back $1,000 at the end of second year. I'm going to pay you about $4, right? Coupon payment every year. They are just promises. The government may not be able to fulfill these promises written on this piece of paper called a bond. In this case, we can say the bond issuer has defaulted on their debt. Bond issuer, that means borrowers, can default on the debt. So that means if you buy a 2-year US federal government bond, right? If the US federal government bond, if the US federal government defaults on its debt, that means the US federal government defaults on this 2-year bond. The government will not pay you $4 coupon payment at the end of the first year. The US federal government will not pay you $4 at the end of second year. And to make things worse, the US federal government is not going to pay you anything at the end of the second year. So here, let me revise this problem. So here, right, we have all those information. And suppose at the very beginning, right, you paid $1,030, right? So we have the first scenario. Everything is fine. If the government fulfills all those promises, right? So at the end of first year, you receive $4. At the end of second year, you receive about $4, right? And at the end of second year, you receive a coupon payment. And overall, you're going to receive this amount of money, and you have made $4.30 by holding this bond for 2 years, right? This is only one scenario. There's another scenario. The government default on its debt on the second day, right after you bought this bond on April 22nd, 2020. So in this case, are you going to receive any coupon payment? Zero. Are you going to receive $1,000 face value back at the end of second year? Nothing. So if the government defaults, the worst case, right after you just purchase the bond, right? So overall, you're going to receive how much money? 0. Because of default, right? You won't receive anything. But wait a minute, you have already paid how much money? $1,003.30 to buy this piece of paper, right? But since the government has defaulted on this debt right after your purchase, right? You're going to receive nothing. So in this case, what is your profit by holding this bond? It is $0 because you're going to receive nothing. The government has defaulted on this debt minus the price you paid for this piece of paper called a bond. And the answer is a negative number. Here. Your profit is a negative number, right? You have lost $1,003.30. Negative profit is called a financial loss. This is the consequence of the bond issuer defaulting on its debt. That means all those just promises, right, will not be fulfilled. In this case, you paid $1,003.30, right, and you get nothing. So this paper becomes worthless, right? You have lost money. So this is a typical example of the financial risk associated with buying bonds. And this risk is called a credit risk. The probability or the chance the borrower defaults on his debt. Okay, so but there are many borrowers issuing bonds. U.S. federal government, right? Michigan state government, Florida state government, Houston municipal government, New York city government, right? Boston city government, Chicago city government, Disney corporate, Disney, American Airlines, PNG, ExxonMobil, right? So even if you have decided to buy bond, you have many options. You can buy government bonds, you can buy federal government bonds, you can buy municipal government bonds, you can buy state government bonds, you can buy corporate bonds, right? But different bond issuer involves different degree of risk. What is that risk? Credit risk. Okay, and in general, you don't know who has a higher chance of defaulting on their debt. So that is why there's a special type of financial service called the credit rating. So there are several major financial service companies here. You can search a Wikipedia page called a credit rating. There are 3 major international credit rating agencies: Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch Ratings, right? So those financial service companies, they are going to assign a letter grade to kind of like your letter grade for a class you are taking right now at the very end. So these credit rating agencies, they are going to assign a letter grade to all kinds of government and corporate bonds. So the highest grade, I'm going to use Standard & Poor's as an example. So the highest grade is called AAA. AAA means that the credit risk is the lowest. So we cannot say the risk is 0. But if a bond receives a AAA rating, that means the chance for the bond issuer to default on its debt, right? It is very low. So in general, it is very safe for you to expect to receive all those promised coupon payments and the principal, right? The face value payback at the end of the maturity. Okay, so all those bonds rated at the AAA, right? They are the safest, the highest degree of safety or the lowest degree of credit risk. And the highest level we have AAA, right? Then we have AA, single A. Then we have the B group, triple B, double B, single B. We have the triple C, double C, and the single C, right? The worst in general, let's make this simple. The worst rating is single letter C. That means this bond involves very high degree of credit risk. Or that means the bond issuer, for example, if the Disney corporate bond is rated as single letter C, right? That means the probability for Disney to default on its debt, it is very high. But here we have a letter D, right? D means this bond issuer has defaulted before. If a bond is rated letter D, that means this bond issuer has defaulted on this debt before. In other words, this borrower has lied before. This borrower didn't fulfill all the promises written on the bond before. Letter D. Okay. So from these credit rating agencies, right, we have AAA, AA, single A, and triple B. If a bond is rated according to one of the four letter ratings, AAA, AA, single A, triple B, right, this bond belongs to so-called investment grade. Investment grade bond, right, they involve higher risk or lower risk. The answer is lower credit risk. That means the chance, the probability for them to default on their debt is very low. And remember the general principle in finance, higher risk, higher payoff, right? But for investment grade bonds, AAA, AA, single A, triple B rated bonds, right? Since they involve lower credit risk, they promise you a lower payoff. Lower payoff in the bond market is specifically referred to lower coupon rate. Okay, but for other groups, a bond rated double B, single B, triple C, double C, and single C, right? They are called junk bonds. Junk bond involves a higher degree of credit risk. And according to the principle of finance, right? Higher risk, higher payoff. So junk bonds, they promise higher payoff. Specifically for junk bonds, right? They promise higher coupon rate. Okay, so this part, from beginner's perspective, may be counterintuitive. So investment grade bonds, right? Those bonds rated AAA, AA, single A, triple B, right? Investment grade bonds, they involve lower risk. So they promise a lower coupon rate. Junk bonds, those bonds rated below double B, including double B, right? They involve higher credit risk. That means they may not be able to fulfill all those promises written on their piece of paper. They may not pay, or they can borrow money from you, right? But they may not be able to pay your money back. So they involve higher credit risk, but they promise higher payoff. So they may offer you higher coupon rate. So a single letter C rated bond, it involves a high credit risk, but this bond may promise you, so for example, 20% coupon rate. But for a safe bond rated AAA, right, this bond involves lower credit risk. Accordingly, this bond only promises you maybe 0.01% coupon rate. Why? Because it's safe, so they promise a lower coupon rate. Okay. And from another Wikipedia page, list of countries by credit rating, right? So all those nations, they need to borrow money in the bond market to finance all kinds of things, right? To finance like purchase of military equipment, to finance the paying of their government employees, paying for social welfare, right? But each government has its own credit worthiness. So for example, some governments like Canada, Denmark, Germany, right? They are rated AAA. That means if Canada wants to borrow money from you, right? Canada will be super reliable. So that means if Canada borrows money from you, in general, Canada is going to pay back, and Canada is going to fulfill all those promises written on the Canadian bond. It is very, or it's very safe for you to lend your money to the Canadian federal government in the form of buying Canadian federal government bonds. Since Canadian bonds are rated AAA, right, lowest degree of credit risk, that means Canadian bond should pay you lower coupon rate. Canadian bond, Germany, Netherlands, Norway, right? They are the highest rated government bond, AAA. Well, some other governments, so for example, Iraq receives the letter grade B. So the bond issued by the Iraqi government belongs to junk bond. It's not investment grade. It's junk bond, single B. That means this bond involves a higher degree of credit risk. If you lend money to the Iraqi government in the form of buying Iraqi government bonds, right, it is very likely, maybe 40% chance you won't get your money back, or the Iraqi government will not fulfill all those promises written on the Iraqi government bond. So this bond involves higher risk, single letter B, right? But to give you some incentive to buy Iraqi government bond, the Iraqi bonds may promise you a higher coupon rate. So for example, the Canadian bonds may only promise you a 0.1% annual coupon rate. But the Iraqi bonds may promise you a 10% annual coupon rate. So if you are willing to take that higher degree of risk, right? In the event, if the Iraqi government indeed fulfills all those promises, right, you are going to receive a higher coupon payment from the Iraqi government. Again, this just demonstrates the very important principle in finance: higher risk, higher payoff.